have you here this afternoon. I have one of my very favorite people that has offered to do a very cool webinar training for us today. I want to introduce you to David Perdue, who is founder and president still, for the time being, of MyNAMS until some other family member steps into the role.
Don't push it.
Don't push it. That's right. I thought you were pushing it. I met David, gosh, 5 years ago, I guess, or so.
Yeah.
Quite by accident, introduced from a friend of a friend, and just absolutely fell in love with the MyNAMS experience. And with David, he's good people and extremely smart. So when he said he had a webinar training available on storytelling, I jumped to it because you can see on TV with Liberty Mutual Insurance and State Farm Insurance, and newspaper ads with Chick-fil-A, and all these big brands are really going for storytelling in their marketing now. And if you do it correctly, you get gangbusters. There was a story in the email that I sent out to all my peeps about this particular webinar. And I think, David, you said that it got about an 80% conversion rate.
Right.
That's without a doubt the highest conversion rate I've gotten on an email that I've sent out in forever, in 16 years of doing business. So I was following the little sneak peek system that you let me take a look at and put it in place. So I've got my pen and my paper ready. I'm excited to take more notes and learn more. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you run with it. And if I have questions or whatnot, I may pop back in.
Okay, please do. Please jump back in if you have questions. And anybody should put questions in the chat box that they have here. We had a little bit of an issue getting some technical stuff straightened out as we got in here. We use Webinar Jam system, and the Webinar Jam system has updated this week. And whenever there's an update to anything, it's always a little dicey. So we had to go out and come back in. So thanks for being patient. I hope you're all in here now. If you're on live today, you're going to get a really special treat. I've got a special offer at the end that nobody even knows about, so this is going to be exciting, right? And you notice I got a look already from somebody. So,
that's right. That's right.
I tend to do things on the fly sometimes, and it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But let me tell you, today it's I got a little nuts in the last 5 minutes, so you want to hang out till the very end of this. So. With that, though, I want to get started because storytelling to me is one of the most important things that we can do. And storytelling is something that will exponentially increase not only your bottom line, but also your relationships with your tribe, your community, your interactions with individuals. It's a great way to actually build relationships. And I'm going to get into a little bit of experience that I've had with this, but let's just jump over to the slides real quick so that we can get started. So, you should be seeing the slides on the screen now. And, yeah, all right. So, uncovering cash in your stories. We're going to show you a 7-step storytelling template to tell stories with a point. And I'm going to try to keep this to less than an hour. Sometimes it goes a little long, depending on how quick you guys respond, because there are 2 assignments. This is interactive. There are 2 assignments in this presentation, so be sure that you are ready to rock and roll here. This is going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you got a pen, too, because you're going to need to write some things down. Or pencil, whatever your pleasure is. So, people tell me all the time, you're a born storyteller. And the truth is, I've never met a born storyteller. All the storytellers that I know have learned that skill. It is a skill. And if you don't learn the skill, then you're going to stumble in your storytelling process. So why are stories so important? Because they sell. If you're in business, and I assume that everybody here is in business, if you're in business, it's really important for you to focus on the purpose of everything you do. One of my favorite sayings is that every action should have a marketing result. And that is so key when you are building a business online. It can be even your support desk. It can be whatever you want it to be, but every action needs to have a marketing result, especially if you are online. So that's something to keep in mind, and that is exactly why we focus so hard on storytelling and the way to get marketing results from the stories that we do. So here's what I want to show you a couple of examples of the ways that people used to market online. This is the first here on the left, and this is kind of what I call old school. An advertiser or publisher, and Karen, you're familiar with this, an advertiser and a publisher sends out a single message from a single source, and they try to reach as many people as possible and convert as many people as possible by controlling that single message from one source to many individuals. That's called interruption marketing, and it is basically the province of commercial publications such as magazines and newspapers and television and all of that. But today, because of the advent of social media, we're into a sharing mode. So what we have today is advertisers and publishers send out a message to individuals, and then they rely on individuals to share that information. If you don't share good stories, if it's not share-worthy, it's never going to go, right? It's never going to work. Being viral is all about sharing good stories. That's the reason Facebook is so amazing. That's the reason we get sucked in to Facebook so much, because I'll go over to Facebook just to answer a message, and 20, 30 minutes later I'm watching cats do incredibly amazing things, right? So it's because those things they're just entertaining, and that's a piece of what the storytelling process is. So what's the problem? You're probably thinking, well, I don't have any stories. My stories aren't interesting. I don't want people to tell. I don't want to tell people about myself. We're really afraid of revealing too much. And sometimes you can reveal too much, but you definitely need to be more transparent if you're going to be successful at stories. You want to be able to relate to people, and the only way to do that in any kind of relationship, whether it's one-on-one or to an entire community, is to be real. So I'm going to encourage you to let go of the facade that you try to hide behind. We all do. We have that facade. And let go of that, because we're going to make this as simple as possible. Telling stories is going to be as simple as possible. And with that, we're going to give you this 7-step template to tell stories with a point. Now, you're going to get this free. At the end, we're going to give you this template and a couple of other worksheets that you can actually use to go off on your own and build these stories. So that is coming to you with the 7-step template infographic that we have and all of those worksheets that we talk about. So hang out, it's coming.
That's part of the sneak peek that I got, y'all, and it's awesome.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it, because this thing works like a charm.
It
once
does.
you understand it. So what we're looking at is the hook. That's the first step. The setup is the second step. The parachute is the third step. The fourth is the theme. The fifth is transition. The sixth is sell. And the seventh is the tie back. Now, this is a little different than what you learned in college or in high school or from your English teacher. What we're or especially if you're a journalism trainer, if you've been trained in journalism, because you always start with a hook, but it's always the most important information at the top, and that's not necessarily the most engaging information. The hook has to be about the most engaging information at the top. So we're going to go through all of these just a tiny bit today, but we're going to focus really heavily today on the hook. The hook is the key to everything. I'm going to give you an example here. This is one of our students, Tim Maudlin. You know Tim, Karen?
I don't think I've met Tim.
Okay, Tim is he does the t-shirts at the workshop, so you may have met Tim.
Oh, I know who he is. I just haven't had a chance to shake his hand yet.
Yeah, Tim is an awesome guy. He and his wife do a lot of good work. Tim is a t-shirt fellow, and one of the things that he creates t-shirts as part of his business. One of the things that he did was create a story. When Jennifer and I first engaged with Tim, Jennifer is my daughter and also the operations manager for NAMS, or the director of sales and marketing now with NAMS. we engaged with Tim, and Tim said, you know, I don't think I actually have a business that can be converted to online. And we listened and said, well, tell me about what you do and why this has worked for you. And he told me this story. And I said, geez, this is amazing. I want you to turn this into a video, a report, an article, everything, because the story is absolutely awesome. So I'm going to play you the video here from Tim's story, and it's going to take us away, and we'll come right back. Boy, I hope they didn't break this when they did the update webinar jam. That would be terrible.
We'll find out.
We will find out. It's about 1 minute and 6 seconds. So just watch this video. The sound should come through loud and clear.
When I saw it, my heart sank. I thought I had just killed my boys. Friday, March 2nd, 2012 is a day I'll never forget. The day a tornado ripped apart my hometown. My boys didn't die that day, but 5 of our neighbors did. The next day, March 3rd, 2012 is also a day I'll never forget. Because on that day I learned one very simple yet important lesson from one t-shirt that made a difference in my life and in my community. A lesson I want to share with you, a story that will inspire you. T-shirts that inspire, the $89,000 t-shirt, how one t-shirt inspired and healed a broken community. Available at Amazon.com.
Okay, so Karon, you should be back. Everything's good?
Yes. Yes. I didn't see it.
You didn't see the video? No, that's because you're an admin. I forgot to tell you.
Okay. Okay, good. As long as everybody else saw it, that's fine.
Everybody else should have seen the video. And let me know if you did not, and we will put the link. In fact, I'll put the link in here so you can actually go see the video on your own anyway, if you want to, in the chat box. That's at nams.ws/heart-sank. And I've put that in the chat box, and I'm actually going to highlight it. So that'll be at the in the chat box. It'll be a sticky in the chat box. That's a 1-minute video that did a great job of getting a really serious message across really fast. It is a Kim says great video. Blandy saw it, Suzanne saw it, great, excellent. You guys saw the video. So this 1-minute video basically grabs you from the beginning, and we're going to talk about this video in a little bit and why that hook was so important. Notice I said over here on the side, when I saw it, my heart sank. I thought I had just killed my boys. That is an amazing, that was an amazing hook that got everybody's attention. And so Tim did a great job with this, following our 7-step template. So let's, I'm going to introduce myself first before we jump into everything else. Why am I qualified to talk about this? I am, as Karon pointed out, I am the NAMS Inc., the Novice to Advanced Marketing System CEO and founder of this company. We've been doing online business training since 2005. We focused on niche and affiliate marketing for many years. We do a lot of training now. We focus on training specifically now. That's just about all we do. We do live and virtual events. We've got a virtual event coming up in a week called the Complete Product Funnel, and if you're interested in that, we can tell you more about that. But the Complete Product Funnel is all about building out your funnel. We've had one about 3 or 4 months ago that we did on traffic and conversion, and we've got a live event coming up in April. So in Atlanta, we've done 14 of those. We have over 135 instructors who've been instructors in our system. That is at the live event only, not including the virtual events. And if you include the virtual events, we probably have over 200 instructors. Mm-hmm. We've got thousands of students, and we have the MyNAMS.com membership site, which backs everything up. The fun stuff about me is I was 17 years in the newspaper business. I'm an Alabama football fan, a huge Alabama football fan. And I'm a huge Indiana basketball fan. I graduated from Indiana. My wife graduated from Alabama. And so we participate in both of those as much as we can. Well, actually, we participate in Alabama all the time. Indiana is when I can squeeze it in. So Alabama gets the preference around here because I'm a good husband. You know how that is, right, Karen? So I built my own log house in 2002. I took a year off from work to do that, and that's this little guy down here in the corner, and that's my wife up there with me. We love to travel. This is us on Bourbon Street for one of the football games that we traveled to. I was a photographer for 30 years. I was a baseball pitcher until I was 48. I love passive income, and everyone loves my wife. So, Karen?
Yes?
Everyone loves my wife, right?
Everyone loves Charlesa, including me. She's amazing. I actually found out something new about you that I hadn't already seen. I didn't know you were a baseball pitcher.
I was a baseball pitcher until I was 48. Yeah, I was playing old man baseball from the time I was 30 on. Yeah, yeah. Until I actually had to quit because I just kept coming home bruised and bloodied. And Charles and I were newly married, and she begged me to stop doing that, and I did. So
cool.
So which of these is more interesting? Why I'm qualified to talk about this, I basically gave you my resume here on the left, right? Or I told you all of this fun stuff on the right. Which of those do you think is more interesting?
The fun stuff.
Of course, of course. And why is that? Because you can imagine a bunch of stories in this thing. How many stories do you think are here? Let's just take a guess.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
12. How many?
Well, at least the number of bullet points, but probably more than that, because being an Alabama football fan is going to have multiple stories, and everybody loving Charlesa is going to have 24 stories, and
at least, yeah.
At least.
Well, and being a pitcher for 48 years, or until I was 48, building my log house for a year, you know, I shot myself with a nail gun. There's one. I can talk about all these things.
All the places you've traveled to, at least one story each, probably more.
Yep, exactly. So there are hundreds of stories just in those bullets, right? So the key is that we all have a ton of stories. Now there's two types of stories. There's chit-chat, which is, you know, when you're just sitting at a table and somebody says, how was the ball game? Or how are your kids? Mm-hmm. Or, you know, what are you doing lately? How's business going? You know, all of those things, which is just kind of a relationship building and connection. People call it small talk. That's what it is, right? And then there's the persuasive, which is simple. Persuasive is really simple. All we want to do is move the listener to take an action. That's what persuasive is. We want to get somebody on our side. We want to get somebody to do whatever we want. It might be just to like a post on Facebook. It might be to buy a product. It might be to vote for a candidate. It might be all kinds of different things. But that's what persuasion is. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Here is the chit-chat piece, though. This is my dad here on the right. My dad is my connection to one of the best storytellers I ever met. My dad's not such a great storyteller, though. His dad actually was a great storyteller, and I'll show you more about that in just a minute. My dad is the nicest guy in the world. He's not a persuasive storyteller. He tells stories all the time. People, i.e. family, dread the stories because we've heard them over and over and over, and they just go on and on and on. But friends kind of love them. Friends who haven't heard them all their lives kind of love his stories. But they aren't persuasive. And why not? There are too many tangents. They're about people that we don't know, people that he knew, right? So we can't really connect to that. Mm-hmm. There's no specific purpose to his stories. But he's building relationships. And the big thing is that when you're chit-chatting with somebody versus persuading people, he's preaching to the choir. So he talks about politics and religion and growing up in an era with all of the kind of same people who went through the same kind of stuff that he did. So they're not interested in changing something. They're just reinforcing right? That's what chit-chat does. It kind of reinforces. Persuasion changes. His golfing buddies love him because they're the same kind of guys, right? So that's what chit-chat does. Now, the difference in persuasion is that we are dealing with somebody. So take a look at these two people here. She's empathizing, she's identifying, and she's focusing. That's really important. That is all about listening. So she's empathizing with the, she may be telling the story, but when she's telling a story, she's empathizing with her audience, she's identifying with the problems that they have, and she's focusing on the audience. Those three key elements are really important because that gets a common bond, a common connection. Then the persuasion kicks in, and the persuasion is she's looking for a solution, and she's offering a solution. And she's not going to offer a solution that is out of the blue. She's going to offer a solution that has proven results. And when she can do that, when she offers a solution that has proven results, she can convert them. So persuasion is about some sort of decision or conversion. You agree with that, Karon?
Yes. You have to know what you want somebody to do before you can get them to do it. So focusing on that is what's going to get you there.
And that's a huge point because you always start with the purpose in mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
You always start with the story with the purpose in mind. And the purpose of storytelling in my mind is about creating trusted friends who do business with you. That is a key. You want to have relationships where people will do business with you. So I'm hearing you say, but, I don't have great stories, or I have some concerns, or this is out of my comfort zone, or whatever this is. You've got objections, right? I don't have any stories. Well, I'm going to tell you that you just think you don't have any stories. You have a ton of stories. We're going to prove it here in a minute. Nothing interesting happens to me. How many times do we hear that? I'm going to show you how you can have 4 or 5, 6 things just from the last, if you got up 4 or 5, 6 hours ago, you've got probably a dozen things that you can write stories about today already. Why would anyone want to hear my stories? Remember, we go back and we empathize, and we identify, and we focus. So we take the stories that we have and we turn those into things that other people can relate to. We're going to talk a lot about that. I don't know what makes a good story. Well, guess what? I'm going to show you. So what if I could show you the secret? That is like opening a vault, and that is the key to this whole thing, is being able to bring people into your bailiwick so that you can actually convert them and persuade them and make more money, build more relationships, have a larger following, have all the benefits of using storytelling to do that. So step 1 is to identify your story source. Like I just said, every day you have daily events that you can write stories about. One of the things that I'm doing, and I've taken this on as a challenge in the last, well, since my birthday, last month, I've taken this on as a challenge, is to do a daily video, daily 2-minute video for Facebook, because I have been really remiss in my Facebook engagement, and we are getting much, much better about that. So I'm posting on my Facebook page a video every day, and then we boost those posts, and we're getting a ton more engagement. And all of those, by the way, come from the things that kind of happened to me that day, and I relate them to what we're calling a universal truth. A universal truth is the key to being able to take your stories, take your daily events, and turn them into stories that other people will relate to. It is important to identify that truth and turn that into a bridge. That bridge is from the events that happen to you to solving a business problem, or an engagement problem, or a solution to some kind of a problem. So the universal truth is kind of the thing that moves from one thing to the next. It moves from your story to the solution. It's the transformation from your story to the solution. So how does that universal truth translate to a business problem? That's the key question. One way to make sure that you incorporate it is to use the phrase, it's the same in business, or if you are a business owner, ... So I'll give you an example of that in just a minute. Step 4 is the business issue. Make the problem even bigger and badder in business. If you're talking about business, if you are talking about, if you're running for office, then it's kind of the same thing. You see politicians doing this all the time. They identify problems and they make those problems huge. And then they tell stories about the problems, right? So whether it's a huge problem or not, that's the way they operate. Step 5 is the solution. You're going to tease that you have a solution. That's the what. Your solution is about the steps and the actions. That's the how. Then you reveal a piece of the how to show utility, but you don't reveal the whole thing. That's you don't want you want to. There's a phrase that's called what is that phrase that I love so much? It is useful but incomplete. That is useful but incomplete. That's the part that gets people converted. That's the part that gets people persuaded. So you want to remember that as you're building this out. Now, I told you to get your pen ready because this is where you're going to be doing some work. I want you to make a list of 10 situations you were involved in today. And you're going to type those in the chat box.
Oh, I'm going to type them in the chat box.
What'd you say?
I had my pen, but if I'm going to type them in the chat box, I don't need my pen.
You're only going to type the best one. Best 1 or 2 in the chat.
Oh, okay,
So you can write down on a piece of paper all 10, then write the best 1 or 2 in the chat box that you think you can turn into a story. So don't think about the storytelling first. First, you want you to think about the things that happened to you today that came to mind. And I'll go first as an example this morning. So this is just today. So I got up this morning a little late. Usually my day starts with me sitting in my chair in the morning, looking out. I've got a beautiful stream that I look out the window and just sit there and try to get myself centered, do a little meditation, although it's not really meditation. It's more, well, maybe it's meditation. Who knows what meditation is? But it's basically me just kind of looking out the window and getting my mind right. So that was one thing. Let's see, the next thing was that I usually run every morning, and this morning I thought, well, I don't want to run. It's been raining, it's been the bad weather, I don't want to do all of the stuff that it takes to prepare for the rain and the cold. So I sat in the chair and looked out the window and didn't pay a whole lot of attention, but I kind of made up my mind already I wasn't going to run. My wife got on her clothes and she took off in her running clothes and she took off for a run, and I went downstairs in my bathrobe and looked at the temperature gauge, and it said it was 55 degrees, and it was beautiful. So there's something there. I'm kind of feeling there's something there. There's a lesson there for me, right? There's a universal truth there. I'm feeling it. So let's see. I went to the coffee shop this morning. I sit and work at the coffee shop because I find that I like to work around people. Being in my office without a window and without engagement with other folks, I actually get more done if I'm working around other people. I'm learning what my work habits are. So that's another thing that I did this morning. Let's see, I bought a bottomless mug of coffee this morning, but I only had 1 cup. I felt robbed.
Well, whose fault was that?
Perfect. So there's a universal truth, right?
Go get more.
That's right. Okay. So those are some examples, right? So you guys are typing in your chat box already, and that's really good. Leslie says I was so busy I couldn't talk to my friend who I'd promised I would call. Okay, broken promise. Terrell says I launched my kitchen supply company on Amazon today. There you go, beautiful.
Yay, woo woo.
Leslie says I was looking forward to a quiet morning going over my business email, and then someone called to say they were waiting for me, and I had thought we weren't meeting. So a missed appointment. Type in the chat box some of the things that you have that has been coming up for you today in this as well. So type in there some of the things that just happened. Oh, wow, boom, we got a lot more here. Let's see, Emily, getting ready for work, eating breakfast, driving to work, get to work, ran out of coffee creamer, yet yell at the people first.
Yell at the people.
Yell at the people because of that. Take pictures of the food ready to ship, posting on Facebook, and scheduling posts later today. Emily's been very busy today. Patricia had a wonderful power 90 minutes to get ready for the morning, took yoga for the first time. Wow, there you go, new experience. Since I was out, I picked up dinner for tonight. There you go. on day 2 of refrigerator research. Sonia says, today is my daughter's birthday, it's raining, and I had a flat tire and the air pump didn't work. So I placed her on the school bus, which she hates. Kate says, working on adopting a cat. These are all good. Kate says, furnace checkup man is on the way.
See, yesterday would have been more exciting because then I could have written down on my list that I got audited. That was fun.
Oh my. Oh my. Audited. Oof. Well, there's a whole lot of universal truths in these things that are happening here, right?
Right.
And people probably don't identify these things as universal truths. But it's the key to making stories. When you start looking for the universal truth, there's a whole bunch coming in now. Saw a child playing inappropriately with some things at a gourmet food store.
Oh my gosh.
Got a return smile from a toddler. There you go. It's 3 a.m. now and I'm staying up a bit. But I'm staying up, but I feel kind of sleepy now. Okay, so let's talk about one of these. Let's take something really simple, like, and I'm just doing this off the cuff here. I got a return smile from a toddler. So what's the universal truth in got a return smile from the toddler? Karen, you got any ideas about that?
Oh, let's see. If I could paint my own picture, I would say that maybe the toddler was fussy or something like that, and this person might have been trying to cheer them up, so getting a return smile from the toddler meant that he turned this little person's day around. Maybe the rest of his day and the day of his mother would have been better because of the smile.
Or, yeah, absolutely. Those are good things, too. And one of the things I thought of immediately was, how does that feel to get a smile from somebody else? And what does that do for you in the way that you approach other people, right? So even a kid who has this childlike innocence can really set your day in the right direction just by giving you a little smile, right? So a smile is always something that you can build a story around. A child act is always something that you can build a story around. Mm-hmm. So how would you translate that into a story for your business? Okay, so if you are trying to get people to sign up for a webinar, let's say, and I'm again making this up off the cuff. If you're trying to get people to sign up for a webinar and you're writing an email about it, you start with, I was sitting here trying to figure out how to tell you about this wonderful webinar that we're doing today, and I looked over and there was a kid smiling at me. And I didn't know why, but I knew that I felt great. And you know, I know that I'm going to feel really great at the end of this webinar. So you make that little transition, that little connection from the story that you start with. Now that's a very simple and not great, because it's not real engaging analogy there, but you can take anything and turn it into a story. You can take anything and turn it into an opening of an email or an article. Does that make sense, Karen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely does.
So we're going to move on, and you've written your stuff in here. Now keep track of those because we have another assignment in a little bit. You're going to write a hook, okay? So, oh, I love the one I just saw come in. Coyotes were howling outside my home early this morning, and I was grateful that my pets were inside. Man.
Ooh, had a cat years ago that got attacked by a coyote. Amen to that.
Okay, so that elicited a response in you. There's a connection.
Yes.
There you go. I have coyotes every night outside because I live in the middle of the woods, I have coyotes every night outside there. So it really elicits a response for me as well. Mm-hmm. It says that they brought up my fears and it took a long time to go back to sleep. When I did, I had some good dreams about how I'm helping people with my work. There you go. All right. So here is how do we introduce a persuasive story? What are the key elements about persuasive stories here? They have to be interesting, engaging, useful, and memorable. Interesting, engaging, useful, and memorable. So remember that template that we talked about. This is the template that you're going to get when we get to the free download toward the end of this. And all of these are going to be on the on this infographic, it's an infographic you can actually use on your site if you want as well. You can distribute on your site as well. And we're going to look at each one of these steps. The hook is basically, the hook is something that amazes and shocks or engages in some kind of really interesting way. The coyotes were howling outside my home early this morning, and I was grateful that my pets were inside. It's a pretty good hook. She's already written her hook for that story. Right? The setup then is the context. They brought up fears, and it took a long time to get back to sleep. Believe it or not, that is a piece of context right there. That she's told us why that's important. She's told us what the feeling is going to be on that one. And then the parachute is jumping into the action. So when you jump into the action, and this can happen, by the way, anywhere in the story structure. It doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3. The parachute is, the thing I always like to talk about with the parachute is like Mission Impossible, or Air Force One, or any of these old movies or new movies especially that start with a lot of action. They're parachuting right into the action of the movie. You don't get a lot of context. The parachute is actually the hook of the story because it gets you engaged immediately. And I love stories that use the parachute as the beginning because they're so engaging. Then the theme is the thing that takes you through the entire story, and it's kind of the point of the story, right? So in Cindy's example, she said they brought up my fears, and it took a long time to go back to sleep. So the theme is about fear here, in my mind. When you talk about the coyotes that she heard, and she was afraid that she was grateful that her pets were inside because of the fear, so it brought up the fear. So the theme would be about the fear piece of this. Then there's the thing called transition. Transition is when you move from the story to the persuasion. You move from the story to the concept, to the action that you want them to take. And that's the transition piece. Now, the next one is the sell. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you are selling something. It can be that you are persuading people to take an action. It can be a call to action of any kind. When people hear call to action or sell, they often think, that there's a price tag applied to that. That's not always the case. Often what you're doing is you're getting people to opt in, you're getting people to like your Facebook post, you're getting people to share, you're convincing people to come to your home for a party, you're talking to people about why they should join the PTA. There's just all kinds of, we sell stuff all day long. You agree with that, Karen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just about every conversation we have is a sell, if you're trying to get people to do something. And this, by the way, these steps can be used, and you can use these steps to get your spouse or your kids or somebody else to do something that you don't want them to do, by the way.
Yeah, forget podcasts and blog posts and Amazon product descriptions and all that other stuff. Use them to get the husband to take the garbage out. There you go.
That's right. That's right. And then there's the tie-back, which is step 7. The tie-back is really important because this is the solution. The solution was in the cell, by the way. And so the solution, you're tying the solution back to your original hook. Your hook always introduces an unanswered question. This is where you're answering that question because you want people to go all the way through the process with you. That's the key to this, is to answer that question. Today we're focusing on the hook. Now here's something you may not know about the hook. 3 seconds or less. That was about what it took for that type to display on that little chalkboard. 3 seconds or less is just about what you've got to get people hooked. This is a Twitter world that we live in.
Yeah.
If it's not 140 characters or less, people are not going to stay with it. And it started with MTV 25 years ago with those, remember those ridiculous MTV cuts in the 3-minute songs, and we couldn't figure out why they were cutting through songs so fast? It was because of our short attention span. And it's translated into about 3 seconds is what you've got. So there's a way that you can actually lengthen that period of time, though. So can I tell you a quick story? What did I just do? I ask permission to lengthen that time. In 3 seconds, if I've got only 3 seconds, I've got no time. If I ask permission, this is a two-step process, if I ask permission to tell you a story, then you're giving me a little bit more time to expand that hook, and I can set it. And that's the key to this whole thing, is to understand that you're building a relationship, so you're asking permission to tell the story. So here is a picture of my grandfather's and grandmother's grocery from 1972. Isn't this awesome?
That's cool.
Yeah, it was like the precursor to the convenience store, right? So
with the post office built in.
It is. It is. It's really cool. So if you look at it, you'll see it has 2 doors. Over here is the post office on the left, which you can't see. It has the Chevron gas tanks out here, the gas pumps out here. I pumped a lot of gas there when I was growing up. I spent my summers at my grandfolks' house in Kentucky. And over here was the groceries, and there was a little counter out here. There's an RC Cola machine here on the steps, and there's a couple of benches out here. People used to sit out here. Now, this is not all that interesting. I mean, it's fun to look at, but there's not a lot of story there. You can make up your own story about it. But now that I'm adding this is my grandfather, this is my grandmother, this is my 2 uncles. My dad was the 3rd child, so he wasn't born yet. My dad's 86 now, so that tells you how old this picture is, right? And they ran that store for 30 years. My grandmother and grandfather ran that store for 30 years. They were the postmasters of this store. Over that period, or that town, which was called Alpha, by the way, Alpha, Kentucky, and they were the postmasters of this. This building doesn't exist anymore, but they were there, and what I wanted to tell you about this is that my grandfather shot a man in that store without warning or provocation.
With a gun or a camera?
I haven't told you that yet, have I?
I know, but you have me interested. Now my mind is racing to come up with yes.
See? Yes, you want more, right?
I am curious yet, yes.
My grandfather shot a man in that store without warning or provocation, and it's a great lesson in marketing. So now I'm telling you more, but it's not a lot of details yet, because I'm just setting the hook.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
So if we really want to juice this up, David Perdue, that's me, was raised by a bunch of gunslingers who danced around the law, but managed to build a thriving, legitimate business in an impoverished Kentucky town. So,
yeah, right.
So I'm playing with it, right, and having fun. But the
yes,
truth
you are.
is, it's a story, right? It's a story that gets your attention. And that's what we're talking about. This guy right here, what happened, I'll tell you this story real quickly, is that my grandfather made more money trading guns and knives in this store than he did selling groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a potbelly stove in this store. And they used to come, people came from all around it. And by the way, there were only 2 buildings in Alpha, Kentucky, the store and my grandparents' house across the street.
Oh, my gosh.
And so people would come from all around to get their mail and buy their groceries and do all of that. And they would sit around the potbelly stove, and my grandfather would tell stories. And he would show them guns and knives that he'd taken in trade. And so one day he walked up to one of his friends who was sitting there, and he had a little pistol in his hand. He pointed the pistol at him, and he pulled the trigger and went off, right? And he knew it was going to go off. And so the guy fell over on the ground and rolled around like he was dying, and everybody else was gasping because my grandfather shot him. But it was a starter pistol, so it was a blank, right? And
yep.
So and the marketing lesson, of course, is that demonstrations can go a little too far. And so that was the story for that. So let's walk through this for a little bit just to see how I built this hook. So a hook amazes, shocks, angers, scares, identifies. This is your only chance to connect on an emotional level with the audience. This is key, emotional level with the audience, right? They will click away to something more interesting if not hooked. This is no time to be shy, but leave an unanswered question and promise an answer later. So like you said, was it a gun? Was it a knife? What's the marketing?
No, was it a gun or a camera?
Oh yeah, gun or a camera, not a knife. Gun or a camera. Or You know, or what is the marketing question that I left out there on the next slide, right?
Right.
My grandfather shot a man in the store without provocation, and it's a great lesson in marketing. Okay, so let's break it down. My grandfather shot a man. This is personal to me. It makes you, the listener, realize that I'm sharing something about myself. I'm opening the door to a relationship. I'm telling you something personal in that store. So I'm setting up the scene with just that little phrase. It's in that store. And if I really wanted to set the scene, I could tell you that the man was sitting eating bologna and cheese on crackers with 6 or 8 others around a coal-burning pot-bellied stove in the winter while they told jokes. And then you begin to see that picture in your mind, right? You begin to see that whole situation without warning or provocation. Now you're asking the question, what did he do? Was it an ambush? Was it in retaliation for something he did earlier? Was he really shot? You went to camera. I've never gone to camera.
I went to camera because you're a photographer.
I know. Isn't that interesting? I never went to camera.
So I wondered if maybe you got that from your grandfather.
You would think. You would think. Was he really shot? That was the question. So there's 2 things here. One, seriously, it's a marketing lesson. So you're going to be skeptical. Is this really a marketing lesson? 2, you're either interested in marketing or not. If yes, you want to hear the story. If not, you still want to hear it because you want to know why this guy was shot, right? So that's the purpose of the hook, is to keep you. Now, remember Tim's video. We talked about this a little bit. What was the hook with Tim's video? I mean, it's on the screen. When I saw it, my heart sank. I thought I had just killed my boys. Who would not read that or listen to that video, right? That was the first thing he said. So when you get templates, the templates that we have for you, you're going to get a story structure template, and we use the hook at the top, and you just basically paint by numbers, build out your story as you go through this. You figure out what the setup is, you figure out what the hook is, you figure out what all the 7 pieces are, and then you start building your story. It's beyond outline. It's a story with a purpose. You're breaking the story down into purposeful steps. So we're focused on one of the 7 steps, the hook. But to tell you the persuasive stories, you need all 7, right? So we have the setup, the parachute, the theme, and then that's where you would fill in all of these pieces. And I'm telling you, everyday stories make us more real and relatable. Natural disasters are not required. It doesn't have to be something completely over the top. Okay, so you've got your pen, you've got your 10 elements that you or events that you wrote down today. You chose one that you want to use to create a hook, and your assignment number 2 is to create a hook. So choose one of your 10 ideas quickly, write a quick hook, and I'll show some examples. Start typing yours in the chat box. So I have shown you some examples already of some hooks, and like I said, Cindy here had a great one. Coyotes were howling outside my home early this morning, and I was grateful that my pets were inside. That's a good hook. If she's writing for the pet market, she's really got you with that one. Let's see if I can see anything else. Start typing them in the chat box if you have them. And I'm going to move over to the next slide and start talking about persuasive stories and what questions you need to be asking. Let's see. I just want to make sure I'm looking here to make sure we don't have a hook already on a couple other things. Here you go. Sarah says, woke up after a little sleep from my toddler. Don't know how I drove home from my mom's. That's just that little sentence right there gives you a lot of curiosity. What's going on here? Terrell says, everything changes today. Can I tell you what's going on with me? That's a pretty good hook right there. Everything changes today. Can I tell you what's going on with me? People may say no. They may say they're not interested in what's going on with you. But if you said everything changes today, can I tell you why it's important to you? That might be better, because then you're focusing on them. The thing you have to remember about storytelling is it's never about you. It's always about them. It's always about your audience. It's always about your listeners. So I'll wait for you to put some hooks in the chat box, and we'll evaluate those in a few minutes. And by the way, this is what we do in some of our courses. This is what we do in our storytelling course. So why tell persuasive stories? Whether you're self-employed or working for others, these things are the questions you want to answer, I'm sure. Why tell persuasive stories? Well, do you want more results? Can you provide more value? Do you want a better reputation? Do you want better relationships? Would you like a bigger following? Do you need to be more engaging? Have you identified correct audiences? Do you want more invitations? Invitations such as speaking engagements, or let's see, what else would that be?
Podcasts came to mind to me immediately for building relationships and building your list. I also like this use of this in sales funnels as you work people through, because sales funnels have become so cliche. I mean, everybody from marketers to Amazon sellers and everybody else, all the back-end emails have, people make a joke about them now. You know, oh gosh, if I order from you, am I going to get 15 emails in the next 3 days asking me to do this, that, or the other thing? So it would be an excellent way to work some personalization into a back-end funnel.
Absolutely. And by the way, you bring up a really good point. If you do not build funnels that help people get to know you by telling stories in those funnels, they'll be gone in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to tell people about the relationship you want to have with them, and why it's important to have a relationship with them, and what's going on in your life, so that people can relate to you. That's great. A great way to do that. And podcasts, webinars, speaking engagements, participation in books, collaboration in books, friends on Facebook, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just get more invitations when people want to be part of, when they like your stories. So let's see. Sarah says, I wonder if this feeling of complete exhaustion is terminal. I'm interested in knowing more about that, what that is, right? That's a pretty good hook.
Yeah, it is.
Kitty says, are you a natural early riser? I'm not. So this morning's sunrise was really special. What do you think?
I like it. It's got a lot of potential. If it was just tweaked a little bit, it might bring about a bit more curiosity.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're missing here, is the curiosity. So you almost get us with was really special, but you know, sunrise is always special. If you get up early enough to look at it, it's really special. But because they're beautiful.
Maybe since she's never an early riser, you know, maybe put something in there about that. I don't remember exactly what she typed off the top of my head, but something to the effect of was really special because I never thought I'd see one, or, you know, it's something to do with the fact that this is nothing. I mean, and it could be construed when you're talking about thought I'd never see one, or thought it, you know, would be my last one, or something to that effect, because she doesn't get up very early, not because she's not going to be here.
Right. Blandy says, a text from my daughter. I'm out in public and just noticed my pants are on inside out. Now that's funny. I'm not sure it kind of answers the question.
It does. Right? I was going to say that's it. You had the punchline right there. So
yeah. Sarah said, yet again, I'm standing in my underpants. Okay.
The punchline is also there.
Yeah.
We need something to build up the curiosity, and
yet again, I'm standing in my underpants, and I don't know why.
Is this happening again?
Is this happening again? Right. Emily, I knew one of my coworkers would die for using all of my coffee creamer. Yeah, that is a. You guys are starting out with kind of outrageous statements, but you're not building in the curiosity factor.
Yeah, you're answering the question right there in your statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, I thought whatever you were saying about the coworkers must die. Don't say because they used my coffee creamer. That's what that's the nugget you want to hold on to for later.
So I knew one of my coworkers would die this morning.
That's it.
Yep. After spending about an hour on my back, I never saw this coming. Does this sound like you?
Well, I don't know what it is because you did a good job of leaving a hanging, leaving me hanging there, but asking me if it sounds like me, I don't think is appropriate because I don't know what you're talking about yet. So just take off the does this sound like you.
It sounds like back pain is what it does. I mean,
right.
The thing I'll tell you, Patricia, the thing that I related to immediately was about 15 or 20 years ago, I sneezed, and when I sneezed, my back seized up and I went straight to the floor.
Yep.
So you got me thinking this might be something related to back pain. If it's not, I'm interested in reading on. But that's a very small chunk of people who are going to say, oh, she probably gets back pain there. You want to be a little bit more enticing. I never saw this coming. Doesn't really relate to after spending about an hour on my back, I never saw this coming. You see the point?
Yeah, there would need to be some clarification about why you were on your back. Were you meditating? Were you taking a nap? Did you fall down, trip and fall down on something, or something that would allow you to relate specifically, if it is people with back pain, something that would specifically allow you to relate to those people.
So Cindy's back with her coyotes. And she says, coyotes howling outside my home this morning brought up lots of my fears. I had just taken my dog outside a few minutes earlier and hadn't seen them there. I think her first one was better.
I think the first one was better.
And you, Cindy, I think you probably want to know why. So let's go back to this. Coyotes were howling outside my home early. The screen keeps changing here. Coyotes outside my home, or were howling outside my home early this morning, and I was grateful that my pets were inside. That's a better hook, because that is it brings up a couple of things. It brings up gratitude and fear in that one sentence, and it also brings a little curiosity into it about coyotes. It almost sounds like a pack of dogs attacking your house. Which you could actually get a little more dramatic with that if you wanted to. But coyotes howling outside my home this morning brought up lots of my fears. That's too direct.
Right.
For a hook.
Yeah.
I had just taken my dog outside a few minutes earlier and hadn't seen them there. So there's no curiosity here. What you've done is basically tell the story right there.
Yeah, you need to leave a few things out. One thing that I love to do if I'm working with any type of copy, not just only stories, but anything else, is use the words it and these in place of your noun, because that gives some curiosity and helps eliminate being able to give the answer all right there in the same shot.
Right, right. Okay, so remember the persuasive story questions that we ask over here. Want more results? Can you provide more value? Do you want a better reputation? Want better relationships? Would you like a bigger following? Do you need to be more engaging? Have you identified the correct audience? Do you want more invitations? That's the reason we tell stories. That's the reason that stories are so important, and that's the reason you do persuasive stories. So we're coming back to our template again, and this is the 7 steps: hook, setup, parachute, theme, transition, the sell, the tieback. You can see why the hook is so important. But if you don't have a good hook that leaves something out, and Karen brought up a really good point, it's about what you leave out. So you leave something out in the hook, and then you put it in the tieback, because that is going to bring you back to the story. And by the way, the story is not always addressed at all in the transition or the sell. The story is not ever part of the solution. The solution may be something else completely. So the story is just the wrapper. That's what the wrapper around your persuasive point. Okay. So you want the templates, and right here is the storytelling templates. I'm loading those in the sidebar. So if you see this button in the sidebar, if you go to You should be able to see that now, and it should say download now, and you can click on that and actually go get the storytelling templates. Download it immediately. It's a zip file. Do you see that, Karen?
No.
If you probably see it because you're an admin, you probably see it on the offers tab. Or people can go to nams.ws/storypoint and download those templates right now. That's free for you to use today. You get the infographic and a couple other story samples and other things in there. So we've got some good templates for you there. nams.ws/storypoint. I'll put that link here in the chat box as well. Give me just a second. Okay. And there is the templates. Okay, Blandy says seen and downloaded. Great. Good feedback. Thank you.
It is on the offers tab, and I am now seeing it in the chat box too.
Okay, great. So storytelling is a key skill, and here are some people who talk about storytelling. Now, storytelling's been used obviously in novels and books and those kind of things forever, and people who tell really great stories are not necessarily great writers, although some of these are. Rudyard Kipling says if stories were taught in the form of history were taught in the form of stories, it would never be forgotten. That's such a great point, because that's the thing. If things are dry, if what you're telling somebody is dry and doesn't make a point and has no persuasion to it, then you're going to forget it immediately. That's why stories are so important. You want people to remember your stories. The purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think upon. That's Brandon Sanderson. He's a novelist, writes fantasy and mostly fantasy and mystery type stuff. Joan Didion is one of the great literary minds of this century and last. She says we tell ourselves stories in order to live. Stories are really an important part of what we do. So storytelling is a key skill. So we're here to help, and we want to make sure that we are able to help you. This is Jennifer, my daughter, Charles, my wife. This is me. We are giving you these templates, but the templates are not enough. You want more practice. You want others to review your stories. You want others to encourage you about your stories, because it really gets lonely writing these things and just kind of hoping that they work. You need other people to tell you and to review your stories. You get real support. You want real support in those stories. And you also want a little kick in the butt occasionally when you're not doing it, because this is a really important skill set that you got to have. You want more examples. It's always great to read and learn from other people about how they're doing it. And I want you to have a private Facebook group support where you get people that are focused on the same kind of on the single purpose, and that's what we've created as a private Facebook group for people to get involved in. So here's what a couple of people who have taken our course on storytelling have said. Sherry Frost said, golden, this is the best way to describe David Perdue's storytelling workshop. The thought process behind each of these steps in the template ties everything together and keeps me from rambling and losing track of the point. I now look at things differently and can see a story in just about anything. That's the point of the storytelling workshop, by the way. You should never have a lack of stories ever again, because the storytelling workshop shows you exactly how you can find a story in everything and tie it to your business, to whatever point that you want to make to people. Ute says, David masterfully taught and showed us how any story can be effectively crafted for any purpose without losing its creative life. That's important too. By adhering to this framework. This workshop I consider a must, regardless of your background. This was a profound turning point for me while building my niche. So, Karen, we have this special deal for you today.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Yep, $197 is what we normally sell this for, and we decided to give it to your folks for $77 with the promo code. It's Karon, K-A-R-O-N. And it doesn't matter whether you do it all caps or lowercase. We've built coupons that'll work there for you. People can go to nams.ws/KT story sells. And the promo code again is Karon. But if you look in your sidebar, here is that link that you can actually click on and go straight to it. There it is.
Cool. Does Jennifer know you're doing this?
This part Jennifer knows I'm doing. She doesn't know I'm doing the next thing.
That's cool. That's what? 100. I don't do math in my head. $120 off?
It is $120 off.
Wow.
Yep, $120 off. Now that gets you into the private Facebook group. It gets you all of the story, the 7-step infographic, the worksheet, the story evaluation Excel worksheet that we have. We have an Excel worksheet that helps you actually build those 5 steps that we talked about earlier, how to create your universal, identify your universal truth out of the daily events, all of that. We have sample stories for you that you can see that are marked up and how to evaluate those stories as well as your other stories. You get a 4-hour video course. That was version 1 that we did. Then we did a 2-hour update not long ago, like 3 months ago, which is version 2. You have the private Facebook group. This is, again, what we're offering you is the $197 normal. You're going to get it for $77. Promo code is Karon.
Very cool.
Go to nams.ws/KT story sells or click that Buy Now button in the offer that's in your chat box now. So you should see that. You just click that Buy Now button.
Yep.
Add the promo code Karon to get the special discount.
Yes, and please spell my name right or you won't get your discount and you will irritate my mother.
That's Karon, Karon. But you know we anticipated that, and I think Karon, that Jennifer actually created coupon codes for Karon.
She's so smart.
She's very smart. So this is what Jennifer doesn't know about. Our director of sales doesn't know about this piece coming up, okay? And the people who are here live and take advantage of this today get this. Nobody else. They may see it on the replay, but nobody else is going to get this, okay?
Okay.
You get in before we hang up, and we're going to hang up in about 2 or 3 minutes. You get in before we hang up, and I'm going to personally review one of your stories with a video critique after you take this course. Yeah. After you go through the course and build it with your the 7 steps, I'm going to personally review your story and give you a video critique of it.
Very cool.
So, only for the people who are doing this live. You got to get it now while you're on here. There's an advantage to coming to these live workshops, and there's an advantage to staying to the end live. Absolutely.
You always get the best deals on webinars. I don't care what it is, who it is. That seems like to be the very best place to get a deal if you want it on training, and that's a whopper of a discount. I love the personal video critique too. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is, you just don't get that very much. So I'm going to offer this, and I haven't done this, by the way, for anybody else, ever.
Ooh.
So
we're special, y'all.
You're special, and I actually just came up with this 5 minutes before I came on here because I thought I wanted to do something very special for your folks because, you know, your folks are all about, well, they're going to be fun because they are writers, right? You get writers. And I love writers, so I'm real excited about that. So once you create your, that's KT Story Sells, so I put that link in the box as well if you want to click on that. So let's see. I want to make sure that I have this highlighted there. Okay. So if you are purchasing this right now, while we're on this call, you're going to get this personal critique, and all you're going to have to do is send me, and I know, by the way, because of our system, who's purchased and when. So I will check to see who's purchased during this call, and then all you have to do is submit a message in our private Facebook group that you're ready for your personal critique when you're ready for it, and we'll do it. There's no time limit on getting this personal critique. You get
Very nice. But you have to go through the course, the material in the course first.
You do.
To make sure that you're giving it your best effort, and then after they do that, you'll do the video critique.
That's correct. And it'll probably be less than 5 or 10 minutes as we go through it, but it'll be recorded and you'll have it.
Cool.
So it'll be something for you. So people should go to this link, which is nams.ws/KT Story Sales, and use the promo code Karon, K-A-R-O-N. So type in the chat box if you've taken advantage of this already and you're ready to do, and that you'll be able to do your personal critique when we're done, and you've gone through this course. So you should receive the course very shortly once you get this, and there you go. So, Karon, what do you think?
I love it. Thank you very much. That is a whopper of a discount.
It is. Now,
yeah, that's extremely
all the time.
affordable. Well, I mean, everybody will use it. I've got some writers on my list, but most of my folks are marketers that need to write, and that's why they come to us to learn how to do that, and this is just going to bump it up tenfold at least. I mean, every type of marketing that I can think of, every type of copywriting that you would do could benefit from storytelling, whether it's just little tiny short stories or more elaborate things, but all my folks that have e-com websites and service-based websites, if you're not working it into the copy on your pages, you could absolutely use it on an About Us page or something like that to tell the story of how your business came into being. I love watching Shark Tank on Friday nights because what do they start with? You come into the tank and boom, they start telling the story of how these products and these businesses came into being, and they're showing the reaction on the faces of all the sharks that are in the tank, you know, and they're either rolling their eyes or they're smiling and going, oh, isn't that neat? So it's, I mean, everything in business these days is all about stories. It's an awesome program.
And the other thing about it, Karon, is the thing that I like about it is once I developed this template, by the way, this template is a great sales letter template, believe it or not. Because you use this template to actually build your sales letters, and sales letters, by the way, these days are getting shorter and shorter, and the sections within sales letters are getting shorter and shorter and more focused. So you want to use this template to actually build your story of your sales letter.
Right.
You remember the J. Peterman catalog?
Yes.
I loved that catalog. Couldn't afford to buy the clothes in it, but I loved the catalog because every article of clothing in that catalog had a story description in it. It was about where they sourced it, how he flew into the back country of Thailand to find this exact cloth to build this, to create this vest with, or whatever it was. I loved those J. Peterman descriptions because they were story. And was that right, J. Peterman, or was that the character on Seinfeld? It was supposed to be the same thing, I think.
No, well, I don't know. I don't remember a character named that on Seinfeld. But there's also, I think it's Restoration Hardware or something like that. Is the same way. They've got cool stories in there, and just little tiny short snippets. They don't have to be long, but it's an awesome program. I loved being able to go through it before you did the webinar for us, and that was one reason I was so excited about it. I knew from experience it was going to be great.
Okay, so people are asking again about some of the links. I'm going to show you again some of the links. We have, this is the sales link. You can go get this is the product sales link here at nams.ws/KT Story Sales. nams.ws/KT Story Sales. Use Karon as promotion code. The templates are, where are the templates here?
Or you can just click on the offers tab.
Yep.
If you look above the chat box, you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tabs: room, polls, offers. Click on offers, and you can just click that button in there.
That is the download for the templates is nams.ws/storypoint, and it is a zip file. nams.ws/storypoint. Okay.
Cool.
And there you go. So Bethany says she's got it. She's really excited. Good, Bethany. Thank you. Welcome. You're going to enjoy this and jump into the Facebook group, and we will get busy with that. So, again, glad that you guys were here and glad we could do this. Karon, thank you so much for hosting me on this.
Absolutely. It has been my pleasure as always. I can't wait to see you again, in April?
April.
In Atlanta?
April 1, 2, 3. Nextnams.com, April 1, 2, 3.
Cool. So if y'all want to come hang out with David and I and learn a lot about online business, every aspect of online business, you need to check out NAMS.com. What is it, NAMS 1, 2, 3?
Nextnams.com.
Nextnams.com.
Yep.
And you can find out more information about the live event in Atlanta in April.
Yep, and you'll be sending out more information about that too, I'm sure.
Sure.
So.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Talk to you
Awesome.
soon.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.